we're recording our lecture here. So since we're talking about, just kind of breaking down how we can select different groups, and then based on that, kind of use our different sampling techniques that we have looked at in statistics, I was actually looking at just if I can get a decent picture of maybe, just what a bag of M&Ms might end up looking like. And you can kind of use that to guide you a little bit in this activity. And like I said, if you guys still have your M&Ms or product that you used for, or you will be using for this activity today, you can definitely bring those out and kind of work with them also. And I will be putting you in pairs, just so, it's always easier to kind of bounce off ideas with each other. But here we're talking about, okay, so after we have separated our candy by color, that's going to be the most easiest thing. And I would imagine, when we talk about stratified and cluster sampling, that might be something that we might think, okay, this is going to be a great way to kind of break them down into different categories. But I also want you to think about, and you can see all the questions that are listed in this handout, list all the ways you can think of that a group could be selected from the total. They're talking about, don't worry about how many, but rather the focus on the different ways. So outside of color, what are the different ways could you create your groupings? So they're talking about tying this up with definition. So do these ways have a specific definition in statistics? So, again, you're kind of working through your chapter 1. So is there anything else you could relate this with? Then we are talking about, wanting to select 13 from our total, and using what we discovered, describe 3 different ways we could select 13 from the total. So again, based on the different groupings you guys come up with, well, how can you, come up with 3 different ways of getting that sample size of 13 from your total, whatever your population for your M&Ms or whatever it is. Which one of these would represent your population, your total, the best? Why do you think that is your best representation? So we're basically selecting smaller groups from a larger group. So, what are we selecting? So just some very basic ideas, but trying to make you think kind of a little bit beyond, you're separating your candy by color, but what other ways can you come up with to try and do this? So like I said, you can pull up this handout in your D2L course shell. So I have included this under your class handouts. Okay, so it's available to you there. Like I said, if you don't have a bag of M&Ms with you, pull up a picture in Google to kind of try and help you, visualize in a way what your different candies would look like. So let's see, there are 16 of you guys here today. So I think that should be a good break of, 8 groups, since we're doing this in pairs. And so again, I will go ahead and assign you your breakout rooms. And what I want you to do is try and see as a pair, what different ways of trying to group your M&Ms, what can you try and come up with? Alrighty, so let's go ahead and I will create those groups, and then you guys can start working, and I'll pop in and out of each group to see how you guys are doing. Okay, so you should see your invitations coming through now.
Oh, never mind. I see it.
Is it in the quantitative lab or the intro to statistics?
So what I did, I think I went to content, and then it should be like content on the side.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's
or caramel or pretzel if you have like all those different kinds, I guess.
Yeah. And you know how like the M's are like sometimes not there?
Yeah.
Just group them up in that way too.
Yeah. Okay. So different types, I guess.
What else could we do? Let's see. Looking at a photo of M&Ms. Some of them are cracked. Well, I guess that's the same thing.
Here, look.
I'm not gonna work. So
You're good.
so we're sorting them out by color, right? Let's see.
Yeah.
Color.
Population.
So yeah, for all the different methods of sampling of these, so.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Ruka.
Hey,
So far for activity 1 here, we've come up with, other than colors, and I'm sorry if it looks weird, my Zoom is on my secondary screen and my camera's attached to my first screen here.
not a
So
problem at
Don't
all.
think if I'm turning away from you, I'm actually looking at you. We decided we could go by chipped or not chipped. My big bowl here has plenty of chipped M&Ms.
Oh my God, yeah.
Versus not chipped. Some have printed letters, some don't.
Very good.
If somebody were to have gotten a multi-variety bag, you could have split them out by the plain chocolate, the almond, the peanut butter.
Okay, yeah.
Nut style, if you happen to get that style of population that you chose, you could split it out that way. And I think we pretty much figured out that here we're pretty much just dividing everything into a strata of a non-overlapping group. So everything in each individual group has one in common characteristic that we're looking for out of a common characteristic amongst the entire population. We've picked a specific one that can be identified amongst each individual of the population and be a yes or no type of choice, a binary choice, I guess would be a better way to put that.
Yeah, because some of them you are not going to be able to break it up into, multiple characteristics or strata. Like you said, if you're going with the chipped or the non-chipped, then that's, like you said, only two choices that you're coming up with. And that's fine because, again, if you were going to perform a study where you needed to decide how you're going to break down your group, you would have to look at different options and then kind of decide which makes more sense or which would give you a good sampling of your population. So I'm really glad that you are kind of thinking in terms of just the look of the candy, you know, how that printed M on it looks like. So I think that's a very good way of kind of looking at different grouping methods that you can come up with.
Okay.
Alrighty, very good. So you're done with activity 1. Are you ready to move on to activity 2 then?
We are.
Okay, awesome. So it would be nice to see if you were trying to pick a sampling from this, from the different groupings, what you would get as your end result. So I'm excited to see what you guys come up with.
Okay.
Awesome.
This represents. Explain why.
What was it again?
Which one of these best represents the total?
The
It's
total,
The total.
like the population?
Yeah.
Um,
So we've already come up with kind of, okay, so we have line up and like line up the colors in like rainbow order and then conduct random simple sampling. Is that kind of the question you're asking? Because I'm a little confused, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so that's going to be on the second part, the activity 2, where they're actually asking you to select those 13 candies.
Oh,
The first activity is asking you, outside of colors, what other ways can you group your candy? So if you did not separate them by different colors, what other grouping could you come up with?
oh, that's hard.
That is hard. And that's kind of why, because, you know, separating them by colors is going to be the easiest one, because we can see that there are so many different colors in these bags of candy. But, you know, kind of think a little bit outside the box in terms of, okay, so if I didn't have the option of separating by color, what other technique can I use? And that's why I was kind of saying, if you can
Oh,
kind of
true.
visualize the candy. So if you already have the candy with you, or if you need to, you know, pull up an image on Google, so you can kind of at least look at, and then maybe see if you get a better idea of what different groupings you can do.
Cool.
And Eliza, you are saying by which color has the most, but you know, again, if you're separating them by color, then your strata or your characteristic is still based on the color. So even if you go with which one has the most, you've still broken it up by color, right?
Can we just say we're not in a perfect world and the M's aren't always the same size?
Yeah, you can definitely separate them by how the M looks on the candy. Why not?
Okay, cool. I was like, can we just say that they're not like quality checked or something?
Oh my God, trust me, checking those tiny candies for those M's is going to be very hard. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just try to find different ways you can do your groupings.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Huh?
I'm like, where has all the trust gone?
I know. I was like, oh my God, that's scary. Scary. But yeah, so sometimes my kids would like walk in and they're like, Mom, and I'm like, get out. I'm like trying to like just point at them. You know, I'm like, I don't want them to like close my exam. That's not cool.
So
How
some
are
of the
you
ways,
doing, guys?
some of the
We're
ways that
doing good.
the M&Ms was Darla was saying that like sometimes they come in clusters, so we can separate them like that, or like when they're chipped or something, or they're formed in some kind of a way.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
how-
good idea. Definitely. Yeah, very good.
And then one way that I thought about was like if you pull them out of the bag, if the M is face down, you can like categorize them like that.
Nice. Yeah. So if you just empty them out and which ones are facing up and which ones are facing down kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's a neat idea. I like that. Very good.
Thank you.
All righty. And have you had a chance to, after you did the different groupings, like just see how your sampling techniques would work, you know, because part 2 of the activity is asking you to come up with those 13 candies from your total. So just kind of talk, you know, about based on the different groupings that you guys have come up with, what you think your sample might end up looking like.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome, guys.
Okay, so
Group. So that would be cluster sampling. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we could word it like that kind of.
Okay.
Let me write that down really quick.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
I have a question.
Sure.
So was the quizzes like, are we taking the quizzes in class, or what was supposed to be due before 1:45?
The homework and the quizzes, because in class we will only be doing the chapter exam.
Oh, is there any way I could turn them in tonight?
You know, I would say don't worry about if you didn't get to work on the quizzes, don't worry about it now. Towards the end of the semester, I will give you guys a chance to go back and finish any homework or quizzes you might have missed.
Okay.
The only issue is with the homework, you don't want to miss it because, you know, if you don't have the 90% on the homework, you don't get to take the exam. But if it's
Yeah.
just the quizzes that you miss, that's not a big deal because like I said, towards the end of the semester, I'll give you guys a chance to finish any older quizzes. But yeah, as long as you have your homework done with the 90%, you should be good for the exam this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So are you guys able to come up with your different groupings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did color, shape, and count. And then the definitions would be cluster sampling. You know, we're doing work groups of 6, selecting 2 from each group, basically.
Okay.
like that.
And then for the second activity, you will be selecting 13 out of your population to see with the different groupings if you're getting a good sample or not.
Oh, so it has to equal up to 13. Okay, so then we may have to work with a different number then.
Yeah,
Okay.
because isn't that what the second page says? To come up with 13, select 13 from the total?
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about that right now. Yeah,
That's
Okay.
okay. Not a problem.
sorry.
All righty.
We can do. What's
Hey guys, how are you doing?
We have a question about the last one. It says we are selecting a smaller group from a larger group. What are we selecting? Is it asking like what method we're choosing to select them in?
Actually, it's more about a terminology question. So what would you call it when you're selecting a smaller group from a larger group?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't understand that.
Because the different techniques is what you would be using in that first question, right? On the second page where they're saying use 3 different ways to select your 13 from the total.
Yeah.
So that's where you're trying the different sampling techniques. And the last question is just about just making that connection that you are actually looking for samples from a population.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Okay, so are you guys almost done then or?
Yeah, we'll be done after this.
Okay, I think it should be a couple minutes with the other group, so I should be able to bring everybody back together soon.
Okay.
Awesome, keep it up, guys.
There we go.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Well, we're confused.
Yeah, I see Ileana has her hand raised, so I figured you guys had a question.
Yeah.
Stories. Yeah. So for the first activity, that's where we have to like, since we put we sorted out the colors first.
Yeah.
We have to say like which one goes with it or like
So the color is one way of grouping them, right? But what other ways could you group your M&M candy? So the idea is if color was not an option, if you couldn't separate them by color, what other ways could you select? So, you know, what other characteristics, and that's why I was kind of saying, if you don't have the M&M candy in front of you, open up an image in Google so you can at least kind of get a little bit of an idea of, you know, what a bag of M&Ms might look like when you open it up. So any ideas like how else you can group your candy?
I mean, the M&Ms do have like an M on it. We could like group to see like which ones do and which ones don't, like the logo. I don't know.
Yeah, because some of them don't have a very nicely printed logo, right? Some of them, you can just see some lines, but not the whole M. So yeah, you can break it down by that. What other ways could you come up with?
Rainbow.
Shapes. Some of them have different shapes.
Yeah, very good. Some of them have that little bit of an extra candy on it, so it's not a perfect circle. You can do it by shape. Okay, any other ideas?
I mean, there are different kinds of flavors for M&Ms, like the almond ones, and I don't know what else. Dark
Yeah.
chocolate.
Peanut, I think they have
Yeah.
caramel now and something else. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can separate them by flavors. Very good, great idea. So that's kind of what I was looking for, right? Is because color is the most obvious one. So if you didn't have that
Mhm.
option, how else would you go ahead and separate your grouping? So once you come up with those groupings, then the second activity, part 2, is asking you to select 13 out of your total candy, and they're asking you for 3 different ways. So then you want to see out of the different sampling techniques, which 3 ways you would try and come up with those 13 candies from your total population. So once you come up with your groupings, then start thinking about how you can get your sample of 13 candies out of that.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Any other questions you had, guys?
Mm,
Nothing right now?
No.
All righty.
No, not
well,
right.
If you think of anything, let me know, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, what type of groupings were you able to come up with?
I think obviously color was mentioned. That's an easy one, but you can do it by number. If you had sets of 5 or something like that, maybe you could do it by just taking random things out of the bag. You don't have to. If you were trying to be truly random about it, you could just separate them by just taking out of the bag, I suppose. You can do it by how each one looks. If maybe one of them is not fully intact, that can go on a pile. Ones that are perfect, you can put in their own category.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay. Noelia, did you have any different groupings than what Jeffrey mentioned?
Well, I put the size, and then depending the flavor that there are, because I got 2 types of flavor because one they didn't have it for it to be enough. So for example, I got the original M&M, and then I got the pretzel M&M, so that way I can do like 2 different piles. And then it might be because some of them are missing the M, so that's why I was like, oh, we can put those as a group too. So we can plug it to like number, the group, the color, and then just like if they're broken one, like he said.
Yeah, very good. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So if color was not an option, if you could not separate by color, then what else would you do to come up with your grouping? So I think those are great ideas. So once you guys have your grouping taken care of, then the activity 2 is asking you to pick 13 candies out of your total that you have. And this is where you will be thinking, okay, so if my grouping was based on flavor or whatever, how would I pick those 13 candies from my population to get my sample size? And you will see they're asking you for 3 different ways. So think about the different groupings you are using, but then think about the different sampling methods you would use to come up with that sample size of 13. Okay. So any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right, guys. I will come back and check on you in a little bit.
A video response to it.
Oh man.
Hello, welcome back.
Hi. So is our sample looking good?
Absolutely, it's looking great. We actually didn't take any physical samples.
Yeah, and that's fine because
of
this is more
anything.
about
We
just
kind of,
getting the idea of those processes.
yeah. So
Okay.
we decided.
Go ahead.
We had decided of the 3 best ways we could come up with out of the 5 methods: systematic, random, and grouping, with random obviously being the best chance of getting the best representation out of the bag. Because in grouping, like Sabri was saying, what if you got a bag that only had 3 colors in it? And we took 10 out of each bag and put them in 10 cups. Well, there's a chance one cup has nothing but blues in it. The next one might have some mix. The next one might be all red. And depending on your random sampling, you could come up with 3 cups of blue, which obviously wouldn't be very representative of the bag.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you make, Dennis, because I wonder, because even the company itself is doing sampling, you know, when they're filling in these bags. So I wonder if they have something programmed where they have to try and put at least one of each color or not, because I wonder if there's ever been a bag which didn't have all the colors. So that's very interesting point you make, because since we have no control over that, right, we would have to make sure the sampling techniques we come up with should still be a good representative of the population. So that's a very interesting point.
So I did the same kind of study in high school, and actually we found out that M&M actually does have a system to help them make sure that they have every color in the bag, because before they put the system in place, they had a lot of bags that only had 1 or 2 colors in it, and they were having people complain like, oh, it's all mental, but the red ones are my favorite and I didn't get any, so why'd I buy that? And so they actually had to put a system in place to try to make sure that they had at least 1 or 2 of every color in. So they actually make them on separate assembly lines now and make sure that when they go into the actual like filling machine, that they're pretty well mixed up.
That is very interesting, Sabri. Yeah. So yeah, and people were actually complaining if the colors were missing. Wow, man, people are passionate about their M&Ms, huh? But that's really good to know. Wow, wonderful. So yeah, I think I want to give just a couple more minutes because some groups were confused a little bit how to get started. So we got them on track. So I would say here in a couple minutes, hopefully we should be able to bring everybody back together.
Okay, so we did have a question.
Okay.
We got to the last question and it's mildly confusing, but we interpret it because we think it's just pretty much bad syntax writing of the question. What are selecting? So I think we kind of figured out what are we selecting by selecting a smaller group from a larger group.
Okay, so what answer did you guys come up with?
We came up with sample and strata for the most part, because what we're doing is taking a small sample group from a larger group, or we're dividing the larger group into 2 smaller sample groups by stratifying them out.
Yeah, very good, because that is actually a terminology question. So they are looking for that when you are selecting a smaller group from a larger one, you're basically selecting a sample from your big population, right? And then, yeah, you are selecting it by grouping, which is your strata or, you know, whatever characteristics you guys base your groupings on. So yeah, that's exactly what that question is asking. Very nice.
Cool.
All right, cool. Okay, so I've got 2 more groups to check on and hopefully I should be able to bring everybody back in, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey guys.
Hi.
How are we looking?
We're good. We got a few things done. We're almost done actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So yeah, I've got 1 more group to check on, and as soon as I check on them, I should be able to bring everybody back together.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right behind the bookstore.
Okay.
Hey guys, are you done?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. I just had to check on you before I brought everybody back together, so I'll bring everybody now, okay?
Okay.
All right, awesome.
Yo pienso que sí es.
Yeah, whenever I come back from the main breakout room to the main room, it does mute me. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know, Haley. Alrighty, so what I would like to do is if you would share with me your different grouping techniques. And as I was talking to you guys in your individual group, it was really interesting to see just the different ways you guys were coming up with grouping if, breaking it by color was not an option. And so I would like for you to share some of your grouping information with your classmates. And, you will see a little bit of overlap between the different groups, but then some of you did have, a little bit of a different idea that I hadn't heard from some of the other groups. So I'm actually going to go in the order that I see your name, because I did not write down what your group individual groups were. So I know Delijah and Mary, you guys were together in a group. So can you share with us some of your grouping techniques that you came up with outside of color?
We did like size, shape, like maybe how much they weighed. I know she was saying like on some of the M&Ms, like the M's were like faded or like whatever. So
Or
like,
cracks. Some of them are like cracks and stuff. Or
Okay.
flavors.
And then when you're talking about size and shape, what's your, like, how are you coming up with the difference in that?
because
Well, like the peanut ones, right? They're bigger than the normal M&Ms.
Oh, okay. So if you have something like with peanuts or almonds or something in them. Okay. All righty. And then how did your, when you tried to use different sampling methods, what did you choose for your 3 different ways?
we did stratified, cluster, and systematic.
Okay, stratified, cluster, and systematic. Okay, all right, very nice. Haley, I think you were with Eliza.
Yeah, so her mic's broken, so I'll just talk for her.
Okay.
So we created kind of like a smaller list, but so the like the different sizes of the M's on the M&Ms, we'll just say we don't live in a perfect world and some of them are stretched. And then so if they're broken or not broken, and then the actual size of the M&M as well, it's kind of the same as theirs. And then the shape as well, if you had like the peanut M&Ms, because some are bigger than other ones with the peanut M&Ms and like, yeah. And then so we did random simple sampling, and then also cluster sampling and stratified sampling.
Cluster and stratified with random. Okay, wonderful, very good. Hey, Naomi, I think you and Alize were together.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, awesome.
So we also did the shape, and we were talking about count. I mean, and obviously we can't use color, but yeah. Also there's even like an M&M's bag that has like a variety of different ones, so that'd make it a lot easier rather than buying separate, different types of M&M's. You can buy the variety one. And for our strategies, we were able to come up with cluster sampling and systematic sampling as well, but we were still working on it and everything. So we weren't able to get to the 3rd one, but we did come up with 2.
And did you think those 2 sampling methods gave you a good mix of your population?
Yeah, I mean, it was also kind of, tricky. We're still working on it and everything. And, you kind of had to think about it clearly, like, especially with the systematic sampling, you have to make sure you have enough numbers or enough M&Ms for that and everything. So that's one thing for sure when you're organizing that.
Yeah, very good point. With systematic, you definitely have to see, how you're going to be arranging those candies to get a good sample from that. Very nice. Noelia, I think you were working with Jeffrey.
Yes, I was. So what I came up with was we just separated by different size, the flavor they were, and then just like some of the M's were not on there. And then I used cluster and satisfied. And the way we would pull them out would just be like with the handful that would work for us instead of like having different kind of piles, because that would be a little more difficult if the piles are smaller, if some piles are bigger. And yeah.
Did you have a third method or just those two?
Systematic was one we also thought about, like putting them like on the table or like in a grid or something kind of rough, so you could at least get through a systematic sampling.
Okay, yeah, so that seems like a common sampling method, it seems like. All righty, very good. Lisbeth, I think you and John were working together?
Yeah. Okay, so we also came up with like if we had the variety packs, so having like different types, like the shapes, the size too, or well, size and shape. We also said if the M's were visible on the little M&Ms, or if they were like split in two, because some bags do come with like half of an M&M.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we said stratified sampling, cluster, and simple random for our three.
Okay, stratified, cluster, and simple random. Okay, very nice. Jean, did you want to add anything, or was that okay with you?
Yeah, that was about it.
That was about it? Okay, very nice. So Dennis, you were working with Sabri. I think, did her internet go out on us? I'm not seeing her anymore.
Yeah, I think she dropped off there for a minute.
All righty. So did you want to share your findings with us?
Sure. I mean, other than color, just pretty much like everybody else, were the M&Ms chipped or not chipped? Did they got a printed letter on them? You know, if you got the multi-variety, you could go by sizes. Is it a peanut? Is it an almond? Is it a peanut butter style M&M? We kind of looked at those, and the other way we could divide them would be by stratifying them into non-overlapping groups by picking just one of these many characteristics as the dividing point of how we split the population into two or more stratas.
All
Now, when
righty.
it came to the sampling side, we decided a stratified sample was not a good choice because it would not be a very fair representation in the bag. If you stratify everything out, all 6 colors, but you take equal numbers from each of those stratified groups, let's say 13 of all 6, you get to the end, you have 13 times 6 M&Ms, and you've got 13 of each color, which may not actually be representative of the bag because they're not showing the population difference. So we didn't choose strata. We pretty much chose random is going to be our best option.
Okay.
Systematic, if you just basically poured the bag out randomly, systematic would give you a fair chance at it. Clustering was the third option, but wasn't the greatest option on that, other than, you know, dump out your bag, divide it into 10 cups and pull 3 of those cups. There's 30% of your bag. But when you dumped them out, did you dump out all blues into one cup, all reds into another cup, and those 2 cups got pulled and no other colors got represented through a clustered approach? We decided that really probably wasn't our best and stuck with the random approach.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting you make that point because, you know, with stratified and cluster, it would really come down to what groupings you used, right? So if you just did it on, let's say, are your candies chipped or not chipped? You know, if you did cluster sampling in that, the way cluster works is you pick every member of that group, right? So that means you would be selecting the non-chipped ones or the chipped ones, but then the other group would get left out. So it really does come down to what grouping you use and how your sample would be based on that. So it's kind of neat that you guys were thinking in those terms as you were trying to come up with your sample. What I would like, Sabri, if you don't mind, would you repeat that story you told me about the M&M project you did in high school? Because I think that's kind of neat story.
So when I was in high school, I had to take a stats and AP class, and when I took it, they had us do something very similar to this with the M&M project. And my professor brought up a good point as far as if at one point you were to only get a certain color, why that happens, and if there was anything that M&M was doing to prevent that in their bags. Well, after some research and stuff, we brought it back to the table that M&M does actually have to do something to try to keep from only having a certain color in the bag or not having all of the colors in the bag, because they were having customers complain. It is 100% mental. The M&Ms taste different. It's your brain just playing tricks on you. But people were saying that their favorite colors were not in there, and so they weren't getting the flavor of M&M they wanted. So M&M actually put something together so that that way they would make their colored M&Ms in different rows, so that that way every color would make sure it got into the bag, so that they wouldn't have to deal with people complaining anymore.
So it's kind of interesting. And the reason I had Sabri share that story is the company was getting calls from people saying, you know, there's no yellow M&Ms in there, and that's my favorite, or red, or whatever the color might be. And like Sabri said, you know, there's no flavoring in the color, you know, that's just a sugar coating that you have on the chocolate, but people were complaining. So you can see how they had to use this idea of sampling so that each bag got, you know, at least a little bit of all the colors. Even if there's, you know, one or two candy of that color, they had to make sure every color was added to, you know, each of their bags. So it's really interesting how, you know, somebody as big as M&M's has to think about, you know, all of these things as they're sending their product out. All right, wonderful, guys. So Ileana, I think you and Allison were working together.
Yeah, we were.
Okay, so do you want to share your groupings with us?
So we did logos, the ones like that are fading, and then the shapes and the flavors. And the 3 samplings that we did was systematic, cluster, and stratified.
Systematic, cluster, and stratified. Okay. All right, very cool. And then remind me, didn't you have one different way of grouping that hasn't been mentioned yet?
No, I don't think so. Was it flavors? I don't know.
I think
I don't think
Allison, you
so.
had come up with that idea.
I worked with Darla actually, and
Oh,
when-
sorry, you worked with Darla. Okay. So
Well-
Ileana, you were with Ivy? Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So if you will share your grouping with me one more time, I think I got confused with the group, the pair of you here.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we picked which M&Ms had the logo kind of fading off or not completely on there. And we also used cluster, stratified, and systematic.
Okay, okay, got it. All right, wonderful. So yeah, sorry about that confusion, guys. So Allison, go ahead and share the one method that hasn't been talked about, how you guys decided to do your grouping.
If we were to do like a random kind of a sample where we dump the bag out on the table, I would separate them by which way the M is facing. So the M is facing downwards, I would cluster them or put them into their own group. And if the M is facing upward, I would put them in the other group, type of a thing.
And what were some of your other groupings there?
I also thought about like a kind of a systematic where I would choose each 5th M&M I would put to the side to kind of get a variety in a sense. I don't know if that would work a whole lot, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, and then did you guys have any other sampling techniques you would like to try?
Darla was saying that some come in like clusters or they're chipped or deformed in some kind of a way. That's another way how we would separate them.
So Darla, when you say clusters, are you talking about couple candies like stuck together kind of situation?
Yeah. When I did my M&M sampling, I had a couple that they look kind of like a peanut because it was like 2 together and stuff like that. So sometimes they come out like that instead of just being your normal shape, round shape.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right, very nice. Very good. So the idea I really liked about Allison was, you know, not even going on how nicely the M was printed or not, but just emptying that bag, and whichever ones were facing up would be one group and the ones facing down would be another group. So just another kind of way of thinking, how differently can we create our different groups to create these strata or groups that we are looking for. Alrighty, guys, very nice, nicely done. I really like the discussions you were having. I was trying to go into each group and just kind of be a fly on the wall. If you had any questions, I was answering them, but it was really nice to see just how you guys were interacting with each other. So this was really exciting. So how about we take a 10-minute break, give you guys a little time to just take a breather. And then, when you come back, we'll be ready to take the exam. So like I said, it's a 60-minute exam. So even if you did a 10-minute break, you will not be running out of time. So don't worry about that. So it's 2:39 right now. Let's come back at 2:49 and we'll be ready for chapter 1 exam, okay? All righty.